Today's video is going to explore the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is the form y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. Now, this form is used very commonly. We use y equals mx plus b a lot, just because it's the easier of this one versus point slope. It doesn't really look like an equals. I'm going to change it for you. So in this problem, the slope is used as m, not mx, just the letter m. Slope is a number. Slope is change in y over change in x. The intercept that we're going to be focusing on is a y-intercept. And a y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So in this formula, the y-intercept is the b value. Y and x are never part of your equation in terms of identifying slope or y-intercept. They just kind of stay there. M and b get changed. They change to numbers. So let's practice putting this into slope-intercept form. So remember, my formula is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, so I'm going to keep y equals, my m value is negative 3, 4. Bring down the x, and instead of having a positive b, this one's negative. So it's going to change to negative 3. So just remember, the b value is the intercept, and whatever the value or symbol for the b value is, it's going to change. So if it's negative 3, it's going to be a negative. If it's positive, it'll stay positive. In this one, the slope was 3, 4, or negative 3, 4. So we plug it in, it is negative 3, 4. In the next example, I'm just going to kind of change it up. The y-intercept is negative 3, and the slope is negative 1/2. So again, y equals mx plus b. My y value stays the same. M is slope, so I'm going to put a negative 1/2 x after. My y-intercept is negative 3, which is my b value. Be careful, just remember, when you're subbing, just because I give you y-intercept first, doesn't mean it's the first substitution. You just have to stop for a second, analyze your problem, and don't get used to patterns. Yes, there are patterns in math, but I purposefully changed the pattern on you so you stop looking for patterns. So just make sure that you're treating each problem like a new problem, you're reading the directions, and you're applying what you're reading. Because getting in the groove and just getting in the habit of, oh, I've been doing the same thing, slope first, y-intercept second. If you get in that habit, as soon as I flip it on you, you're going to miss it. So just read the instructions, make sure that you're doing what it's asking. All right, let's jump down here. Identify the slope and the y-intercept. The only time you can identify slope and y-intercept is if it is in y equals mx plus b form. So looking at the first one, y is already isolated, so we're good to go. It already looks like our friendly form of y equals mx plus b. If it doesn't look like that, you cannot find slope and y-intercept. So let's identify. The slope in this question is in front of x, so our slope is just 3. Our y-intercept is the b value, the constant at the end. So our y-intercept is positive 2. Now let's compare a and b, because again, we can't get into habits of just thinking every problem is the same. You can't identify slope and y-intercept unless it's in y equals mx plus b form. The slope of this problem is not 5. The y-intercept is not 6. You have to solve for y first. So if you're asked to identify things, it's got to be in y equals mx plus b form. You're going to do this the same way you would solve any kind of algebra problem. We want to isolate y. So the first thing we want to do is move the 5x to the other side. I'm going to just use subtraction because it's positive, so I subtract. These cancel. I'm going to bring down the negative 3y and equals. Now our goal here is to put it in y equals mx plus b form. So that means we want our x value up front. I'm just going to shift it to the first slot. So negative 5x. Bring down your positive 6. Now it kind of looks like this form, so you're good to go. We're still not able to identify slope and y-intercept because my y value is not isolated. So the -3 is being multiplied to y. So I'm going to divide by -3. And I'm not going to draw a huge division symbol. I'm going to treat it as individuals. Doing it this way, you're going to be sure to make sure to see that the -3 gets divided by everything over here, not just one. So doing it individually takes about a half a second longer, but it helps you make less mistakes. So when you move the -3 to the other side, y is now by itself. -5 over -5 is -5 over -3 is a positive 5 over 3x. 6 divided by -3 ends up being a whole number of -2. If it was a fraction, just leave it in fraction form. Now we're not done. I know we did a lot of work here, but our goal is still to identify slope and y-intercept. Now that it's in y equals mx plus b form, now we can identify. Our slope is 5/3. It's not 5/3 x, it's just 5/3. My y-intercept is -2. Again, y and x are not highlighted. They're just a part of the equation. They never go away. So let's practice graphing these. So starting on the first one, graph y equals -3x plus 1. The first thing you have to do is graph your y-intercept. It's a y-intercept, so you need to graph it on the y-axis, +1. The next thing you're going to do is plot your slope. My slope is -3 over 1. What this means mathematically and what I should be thinking in my head is a -3 means down 3. The +1 means right 1. And one thing you want to stop doing is calling it over 1, because over can mean a left direction or the right direction. So you need to be careful with your choice of words. I don't want to say down 3 over 1, because what does over mean? You need to be specific. So from the point, you go down 3, 1, 2, 3, right 1. Then I need a minimum of 2 points to make a line, so I'm going to go ahead and connect my 2 points to make a line. Let's jump to the last example. So this last example here, 2x plus 4y equals 8. Do not be tempted to get caught in the same pattern and say, oh, well, this is my number, that must be my y-intercept. Then you get to the graph and go, it doesn't go all the way up to 8. Then you freak out because it doesn't go to 8 and you think you don't know what you're doing. When in reality, you just are getting into a pattern and you don't want to get into patterns. We cannot graph this until it's in y equals form. I got to solve for y, just like what we did right up above. We got to isolate y. Then we can graph it. So I'm going to move my 2x through subtraction. They cancel. Bring down that 4y equals. Move your -2x up front, +8. Now again, my y value is still not isolated, so I've got to divide everything by 4. To help me and make sure that I'm doing everything correctly, I'm going to write divided by 4 3 times. It takes hardly any extra time to just add an extra division symbol. It makes it easier so your brain thinks, okay, I have to divide everything by 4. So the 4's cancel. I get y equals -2 divided by 4 is -1/2 x. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now I'm free to graph. My y-intercept is +2. I go on the y-axis up 2. My slope is -1 over 2. I want to start thinking in terms of directions. -1 on top means down 1. I'm not going to say over 2. I'm going to specify I'm going to the right 2. So from the point, down 1, right 2. And you're going to plot. Having 2 points plotted means I can go ahead and connect my 2 points and draw my line. Just remember, you can't graph it unless the slope and y-intercept are easily visible. They're only visible when it's in y equals mx plus b form.